Angie, we've got some really great businesses in Collin County, small businesses that are helping Collin County residents with all kinds of things and providing all kinds of services. And so it's really great. Today, we're going to be talking to Sean Lane. He's the owner of FRS Financial Renovation Solutions here in Collin County. And he's going to talk to us about credit scores and what we can do, some of the tactics that we can use to improve our credit scores so that we get the best rate on our loans. So it's really going to be neat to talk with Sean. All right. Hey, Sean Lane, welcome to Collin County Life. Thank you for joining us. We brought you on today to talk to us a little bit about credit and how that affects individual lives. So I guess my first question for you today is, what is a credit score and where does it come from?
Yeah, so credit scores. So, prior to 1989, when the FICO credit scoring model was created and introduced by the Fair Isaac Company, lenders had to evaluate credit by looking at your credit report and, manually looking into this stuff as opposed to looking at a credit score. I like to say that your credit score does not get you approved. Your credit score gets you declined. And the reason I say that is just because you have a great credit score doesn't mean you're going to get approved for the loan. However, if you have a poor credit score, you can be automatically disqualified. So it's taken a lot of the guesswork for lenders and underwriters out of the equation, where they don't need to pursue somebody's file if they don't meet the minimum requirement in a credit score. So if they do end up, having that minimum requirement of a credit score for that particular loan, then the lender can dig deeper to make sure that they qualify. But yes, so the FICO credit score, that's the number one credit score used in lending today. Developed in 1989. It's basically a range from 300 to 850, with 300 being the lowest score and 850 being the highest credit score.
All right, thanks, Sean. So it does. So I had somebody recently. I think people are really not educated about the credit score. I had somebody sort of insinuate that the government was somehow responsible for the credit score. So thanks for clearing that up. So you mentioned this credit score range. What is considered a good credit score?
So I would say that, and there's some differences out there, people's opinion, but generally speaking, anything from, I would say a 600 to a 660 is a fair score. Anything from about 660 to 740 is a good score, and anything over 740 is an excellent score.
Yeah, I think I've been all over that place through my life, and I never quite understand how I got to that particular score. But it's almost like playing a game for me sometimes. But so I guess you're not born with a credit score, right? So how does somebody get a good credit score?
So developing your credit score, and by the way, I like to call your credit score your adult GPA. It's basically your grade point average. So many things we do today, the credit score is a factor in that, whether it's borrowing money, applying for a loan, whether or not you need to place a security deposit on a utility bill or a cell phone, your auto insurance, your credit score plays a big role in your auto insurance premium amount. So that credit score
I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that the insurance companies had access to your credit score.
Yeah, and so they have a little bit different score. It's not a lending type of a score, but the reason they look at credit is because, unfortunately, credit has, I guess, points to responsibility. Somebody that manages their credit well, from what I've heard, tends to have fewer, what do you call it when you have an issue with your insurance? They tend to have fewer claims, right. Yep. Policy claims. People with high scores have fewer claims. People with low scores tend to file more claims. So it just points to are you responsible with
So
things?
I know that like young people, they have a hard time starting out. Getting a credit score in ways it seems unfair, but I also know that they don't have a lot of credit history, right? So we have 5 adult kids, and they all kind of entered into the credit scheme, differently. Some of them struggled, some of them kind of figured it out right away. um, so how does somebody, starting out like that, a young person, what are the steps that they would take to get a good credit score?
Well, I think what we should do first is discuss what does it take to even have a credit score.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay. And so there's a couple of minimum requirements to be able to publish a credit score. So, when you turn 18, if you haven't borrowed money or haven't been added to somebody's credit card, you're not going to be scoreable. You're just not going to have anything on your file. And so the minimum requirements to generate a FICO score is at least one account that it can be open or closed that is older than 6 months, and one account open or closed that has reported in the last 6 months, and that can be the same account. And then a couple other little nuances. They can't be in dispute, so that particular account can't be disputed. And then it also, you can't have a deceased indicator on your credit report. If they think you're dead, then they're not going to score you. So basically, the minimum requirement is having an account that has reported in the last 6 months and an account that has been on your credit report for more than 6 months. It can be the same account.
So how do you get one of those if you don't have a credit score? That's the tricky
Yeah.
thing,
So, the best way to do that, and this is, for the parents out there that want to help their kids, the best way to do that is to add your child as an authorized user on one of your credit cards.
But don't give them the card.
Yeah, don't give them the card. If you have that option when you go in, when you call your credit card company or you go online to add as an authorized user, you do have the option of issuing a card or not.
Yeah.
And so I always recommend don't issue the card. And what will happen is the next time that credit card reports to the credit bureau, it will report the history of that card to their file as well as an authorized user.
So, but if you don't pay your bills, you don't want to do that to your kid, right?
That's correct. You want to pick a card that has a positive payment history, has never been late. You want to pick a card that has a low percentage of utilization on the credit limit. We can discuss that and how credit scores are calculated if you want to. But so choose something like that. A lot of kids take out student loans. They tend to get approved for government student loans. Yeah. So many times that high school going to college type kid ends up developing a credit score because they've applied for a student loan.
I gotcha. So that's another reason to go to college, right? So, okay, we talked about how to get a credit score, but how do you mess up a credit score? So is your first credit score like 700 and then it's all up to you to mess up or improve?
Well, and maybe it's time to go into the things that contribute to your credit score. Okay. Because there are 5 main factors that impact your credit score. The first being your payment history. So 35% of our credit score, basically a third, has to do with how we pay our bills. And so that's the first, the first big thing that impacts your score. That is why you never want to pay something 30 days late. The Fair Credit Reporting Act, which is kind of the law that governs credit reporting, says that a lender cannot mark you or report you as late until you're 30 days late. Now, 30 days late is a long time. If you think about it, you get your credit card bill and it's due in a couple of weeks. Let's say you paid that a week or 2 late. They're not reporting you late to the credit bureau until you're a full 30 days beyond that due date.
Gotcha.
Okay. So number one thing, to build your credit score and to protect your score is to pay your bills on time, because if you pay something 30 days late, it can really tank your credit score as much as 100 points.
Gotcha. Wow. And so that's one of the ways obviously you can mess up. I've heard of some young people where, they've let someone else use their credit. And I've heard of stories where people that don't have knowledge of this, someone comes to them and says, hey, you got good credit, I need to buy something, if I can use your credit, or if you can sign this for me, I'll repay the debt. I mean, how risky is that?
Well, that goes to one of my rules is never, ever co-sign for somebody unless maybe it's your kid and you keep up with that loan and you step in to make that payment in the event that they can't. I've seen so much credit damage, caused by somebody, co-signing for their brother or their sister, or something like that. And so, when you co-sign an auto loan for somebody, you're basically telling the finance company that you're smarter than they are. You're like, well, they're going to pay me because they are my family member. And I will tell you that I see time and time again where somebody's great credit gets ruined because they co-sign for somebody. And then the worst part about that is that they don't keep up with that account to make sure that the person is paying it.
I
so
think
they find out later on that the damage is there.
Yeah, I think a lot of times the lenders don't necessarily, having been a cosigner, the lenders sometimes don't notify them until it falls into that 30 days past due, right? And so I've had that situation where, like, I may have co-signed for one of my children, and the notifications didn't come to me. Not that my kids were, way past due. It's just, sometimes things get missed, and I wasn't aware of it. And as I told my kids, I said, hey, if I'm prepared to pay this whole thing, okay? So if you fall past due, don't hesitate to call me, because this is, my credit that you're messing with as well as yours. So,
well, and I will tell you that if you get in a situation like that where you co-sign, gosh, they have some long-term auto loans these days.
Oh yeah.
If that person habitually pays late, you can be in a poor credit situation for many, many years, because let's say there's 5 years left on that auto loan and they don't pay it like they're supposed to. You can be in a bad credit situation for a long, long time.
Yeah, I had an attorney friend one time. His definition of a co-signer was an idiot with a pen.
Yeah, I mean, hate to say that. Now, look, I've co-signed for my kids,
True.
Right? One of the ways I helped my kids build credit was first adding them as an authorized user to one of my credit cards so that they can develop a credit score immediately. As soon as that credit card reported to the credit bureaus, they had a credit score. Then we went and applied for one for them. Their second car that we got them when they turned 21, we did we co-signed for them, paid a little bit higher interest, but the idea behind that was to help them build a good auto credit history. Mm-hmm. So when I've co-signed for my kids, I've all along known I was ultimately the one paying the bill. And I did pay the bill in the beginning until I wanted them to be responsible and get used to paying it themselves. But let me tell you, I kept my eye on it to make sure they never paid late.
Okay. So I imagine we've got some people listening that they've already made those mistakes, right? So they've fallen past due, and it could be no fault of their own. They may have lost a job. We've been in a horrible economic situation over the last several months. So how do they fix it? So you're in the business of helping people repair their credit. So what does that mean? How do you repair credit?
Okay, so let's start first by, talking about the fact that I think it's 80% of people have at least one derogatory remark on their credit report that's impacting their credit score.
Wow.
And so, some worse than others, of course, but credit reporting errors and credit reporting damage is prevalent out there. And so the number one thing people need to be doing is looking at their credit report. So they should have some form of credit monitoring where they can keep up with what's going on with their credit report. Something better than Credit Karma, because when a lot of people are familiar with Credit Karma. It is the free credit monitoring, but they only give you 2 credit bureaus. So they give you Experian and TransUnion. So they're leaving out, they give you Equifax and TransUnion. They're leaving out Experian. So if you're going to monitor your credit, which you should, then you need to be using a company that shows you all 3 credit bureaus, but also gives you alerts and lets you know when things happen, when there's, something changes on your credit report, whatever.
Okay. Those things kind of drive me crazy, because I literally will get an email every day And it becomes one of those other obsessive things that happen in your life. It's like your credit score has changed, and you're like, oh, and you want to go in there and log in and change like 4 points.
I know, but
you
want to know, okay? Because here's the reason. Most of my clients come to us because they're denied a loan. And had they had credit monitoring and knew about these issues, they could have been proactive about it over the last year or two and tried to work to fix those issues.
So once I fix it, I mean, how do you help your clients keep it fixed?
Yeah. So, let me finish the, kind of talking about credit repair. So number one, monitoring your credit, knowing what's on there. Number two, it's understanding how credit scores are calculated. And I'm going to run through that quickly. 35% of our score is based on our payment history. I've already mentioned that. Or the presence or lack of derogatory information on your credit report. So that's a big deal. That's a third of your credit. So pay the bills on time. Number two is revolving debt utilization. 30% of our score is based on the amount of debt we carry. And that's heavily weighted towards our revolving debt, which are credit cards. A lot of people have credit cards and they tend to, overspend and max those out. And, that's almost worth a third of your score also. So, you need to know that you want to have credit cards, but you want to have a very low percentage of utilization of the credit limit.
Right.
Third thing is the age of your credit file. This is why it's impossible for the 20-year-old to have a top credit score. He's not old enough. He hasn't had he's got a short credit file. And so that's worth 15% of your score. 10% is your mix of credit. So what kind of accounts do you have? You want to be able to show FICO that you have a good variety, that you're responsible with different types of accounts, such as an auto loan, a credit card, and even a mortgage.
Mortgage is the big one, right?
Yeah. So, really, credit cards are the big ones.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, somebody with the highest credit score has a minimum of 3 credit cards, but with low utilization of the credit limits. But then
that might have been where I went wrong.
Maybe so, because that can be worth, maxing out those cards can cost you 100 points or so.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure you keep the credit. You want to have 3 credit cards minimum, and you want to have at least 1 installment loan. And, you're going to score better if you have a mortgage. And what that does is it shows the scoring model that you're responsible with multiple types of credit accounts. It's really easy to have 1 credit card and pay it on time.
Yeah.
It's more difficult for somebody to juggle a couple of auto loans, 3 or 4 credit cards, a mortgage, a student loan. So that is why having a good mix of credit also helps your score. And that's worth about 10%.
Yeah.
And then the last part is the new credit. Okay. So inquiries when you, when you apply for credit. So understanding those 5 major things that impact your credit score, then you can go into helping somebody improve it. And that is what we do.
I got you. So kind of explain how they work with you to get those things fixed.
Yeah, there's really 3 main things we do at FRS Credit. Okay. Number one is, according to the Fair Credit Reporting Act, our credit report must be accurate and verifiable. Okay. So, and if something is inaccurate, if something looks misleading, if they can't verify it, then they must correct or remove it. So that is where credit repair, anything about repairing credit has to do with trying to legally leverage derogatory accounts off of your credit report, in a legal manner. And so if something's not reporting right, or let's just say that something's pretty old and it's bad, if they can't back it up and verify it with the creditor, then they have to remove it. So that's one of the 3 pillars of what we do in credit repair is, 1, we work to try to remove those derogatory accounts from the credit report that cannot be verified or that are reporting inaccurately. Okay. But that's only about a third of what we do, because the second thing we do is we help our clients build positive credit. Many times our clients come to us, they've made a lot of mistakes, and so they've kind of checked out of credit cards. And you know what? Without a credit card, you're going to score a lot lower than if you have a credit card or 2 or 3, like I said.
So they got tired of the credit cards. They said, I'm just going to close all of them. and I'm not going to have revolving credit cards anymore.
Right.
And that's a bad thing.
That's a bad thing from a score perspective.
Is that right?
Okay.
Wow.
So here's the thing. Credit cards are not bad. Credit card debt is bad.
Gotcha.
Right. So credit cards help your credit score
puzzling.
when you use them properly. And those folks that don't want a credit card are hurting their credit score by not having revolving credit.
Is that right?
Okay.
Wow.
So we teach people how credit scores work. We help them build positive credit. And then the last thing we do in credit repair, so we help them with the derogatory stuff. We help them build positive credit. And then the last thing we do is we teach them about how all this works while they're in our program, so that when they leave our program, they have the knowledge
I think that's
and
important.
the skills necessary to keep their credit strong.
That's huge, because I don't think it's taught anywhere. I don't think there's a class that you can take in high school or in college that talks about credit. And so to some degree, I think some young people are, on one hand, they're very scared of credit because maybe they've heard their parents talk about issues they've had dealing with different debt. But then there's the other young person that is totally clueless, and somebody offers them a card at the register, and they're just like opening up cards here, left and right. So it's probably the one thing that we spend the least amount of time, other than how to do your taxes, the least amount of time on how to do.
Yeah. And I'll tell you that I believe there's two things that can improve everybody's credit out there. It's time and education.
Wow.
Okay. A derogatory thing in most cases can only stay on your credit report for 7 years. And so if somebody just waited, okay, that's one part. Eventually the derogatory stuff's going to come off. But without the education, what I see is consumers make the same mistakes over and over again because they don't understand the impact.
So it prolongs the issue that they're having.
In a perpetual state of low credit. And so,
or they go and borrow from a high interest rate lender to pay off other debt, and it just spirals from there.
Absolutely. And so, if you understand how this stuff works, then you've got the tools to build and keep a positive credit score. I hear all the time, somebody says, well, I know I was late, but I paid that off, so it should be good. And the problem is that when you pay something late, or let's say you default on it and you go back and you pay it, that's the right thing to do. But at that point, your score is already damaged and it's a part of your credit history. So, young people need to understand that paying your bills on time, never being 30 days late, is the number one thing that they need to do.
But it's also nice to know that, hey, if you mess up, there may be a way to fix it. So my final question to you, Sean, here today is after hearing this, if someone is interested in getting help, what is the best way for them to start working with FRS Credit Repair?
Yeah. So first of all, what we do is we're going to do a free credit analysis for everybody. We don't want to enroll somebody into credit repair unless we know that we can help them.
Okay.
Examples of somebody we may not be able to help have to do with, are they currently behind on stuff? If they are, then we're going to suggest catch those up or decide what you're doing. Are you paying them or are you not? And let's talk in a few months. But they can go to our website, frscredit.com. They can click one of the tabs at the top. We have a credit monitoring tab, which will allow you, if you just want to look at your credit and not talk to us, then go to the credit monitoring tab and you're able to pull a credit report from all 3 credit bureaus from Identity IQ. And if you use our link, it's only cost you $1 for a 7-day trial. Okay. So if you just want to go look at that. Okay. If you want us to review it with you, go ahead and book time with myself or one of our credit consultants. And what we'll do is we'll do a free credit analysis for you. We'll let you know what's impacting you, what you need to do to, improve it. And if there's an opportunity where we can help you with that, then of course we'll talk to you about that. But, sometimes it's just, hey, do this and this and go on your way.
All right. Thanks, Sean, for joining us today, and really appreciate the information you have. I have a suspicion that some of our listeners are going to reach out and connect with you. So thank you for joining us. I wish you good luck.
All right. I really appreciate you having me today, Brent. Thank you.
Thank you.